Let's talk COVID. Because I imagine all of us were excited last week when President Biden announced that he was directing states to make all adults eligible to get a COVID vaccine by May 1st. Now, Biden is able to do that because the Trump administration pre-purchased a bunch of different COVID vaccines as part of Operation Warp Speed, even before they were approved by the FDA. And the Biden administration has done a really great job of ramping up that process and distributing those shots to people in states. But vaccines are scarce, right? And many countries, especially poorer countries, haven't been able to get enough doses for their populations, not even close. And that's bad for the people in these countries. It's also bad for us in America because the more COVID spreads, the more it mutates and it can put us at risk again. So the whole world needs to get vaccinated. And the question is, how do we do that? So one important piece of the puzzle is called COVAX, which is a global coalition working to distribute doses to lower income countries. There's another debate about whether the US should be sending some of its surplus doses overseas because we purchase way too many. But then there's another idea that is really not getting discussed enough, which is this request from 57 countries to the World Trade Organization to temporarily waive patent protections for COVID vaccines. So Bernie Sanders sent a letter to President Biden asking that he come out in favor of this proposal. On the House side, I saw Reps Jan Schakowsky, Rosa DeLauro, Earl Blumenauer. They sent a similar letter in support of temporarily lifting certain restrictions on the manufacturing of like COVID-related diagnostics, treatments, vaccines. Ben, I don't have a clue how vaccine manufacturing works, but oddly enough, like this is what you and I have been talking about on this show for months. Clearly, the world would benefit from essentially open sourcing everything we know about COVID, as well as the ways we can stop it. It seems like a no-brainer to me. What do you think is holding this up? Is this just like lobbying from pharma? Like, what's the impediment here?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer. From a humanitarian perspective and a global public health perspective, you want as many people to get as vaccinated in as many places as possible, as fast as possible. If you want to advance that to self-interest too, by the way, the U.S. standing in the world, let's just say it's taken a bit of a hit over the last few years.
Fair.
What better way to try to, Joe Biden keeps saying America is back, and that's great. But like, what better way to actually demonstrate that than to have America lead the world in getting billions of people vaccinated? We have the resources we have, through so many of the vaccines, being developed here in the United States. We have the innovation here to having, created a bunch of the vaccines in this country to make that happen much faster than it would otherwise. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think there's two potential constraints, right? One is the perception that, America is helping to vaccinate people in other countries, particularly maybe before everybody in America has been vaccinated. But look, as long as Joe Biden knows that the vaccine is not being slowed down and reaching Americans through some effort to reach people globally, I think you can make that case that, this is not some America First ideology administration. This is an administration that sees our fates as tied together with people around the world. And no, we're not going to slow down at all getting the vaccines to as many Americans as fast as we can, but we can move on a parallel track to get the vaccine disseminated globally as well. And then secondly, I'm sure that there's some, profit motive in big pharma or some precedent that they don't want to set. But this is an unprecedented thing. This is a once in a century global public health emergency pandemic. Just bulldoze right over those concerns. And there has to be ways, I'm sure that the pharma companies are being compensated for all the vaccines that are being purchased to begin with. This is one of those cases where there's just a right thing to do. And so you figure out a way to do it. And by the way, doing the right thing, I think, will go a long way towards the United States once again putting itself forward as a country that is a leader in the world, not just because we say we are, but because of the things that we do.
Yeah, God forbid we set a precedent that everyone has access to medications that are life and death in the middle of a pandemic, right? Yeah, I mean, I can understand the concern about, look, we bought 2 or 3 times more vaccines than we needed, doses than we needed. I could see how easily it could be demagogued if Republicans were to say, oh, Joe Biden's sending your vaccine overseas, that's why you can't get one yet. Sure. But that's not even what this proposal is. They're saying, let manufacturers in South Africa or India or other places make the vaccines by lifting restrictions on the intellectual property. Again, I don't know what it takes to manufacture an mRNA-based vaccine. Like, I don't know if these countries could do it, but it seems like an idea we should consider. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think we absolutely should, pursue that idea, frankly. But even on the surplus vaccines, right? Like, you don't live in fear of those arguments, those kind of America first arguments, as long as you know that you are doing everything you can to if an American wants a vaccine, you're moving it as fast as possible to reach that American arm. There's no reason we have to toss out a huge amount of surplus vaccines because we're afraid of, or sit on them because we're afraid of the perception that people in other countries might get them. I mean, we have to break out of that psychology here, and there's a real opportunity on both these scores. And on the second one, it's funny. Like I was talking to a British friend who was watching the Meghan and Harry interview and was like jarred because she doesn't usually watch American television by the fact that all the ads were for drugs, basically.
Oh yeah,
because they have socialized medicine there, right? So the idea that there's something already uncomfortable about the profit motive attached to life-saving drugs in this country.
Yeah,
I get it. We don't have socialized medicine, okay, but for a pandemic that is killing people, that is putting the global economy at risk and global supply chains and the capacity for Americans to travel to places, there are plenty of self-interested reasons. If you don't buy into the kind of global humanitarian argument, which I think we do, you can mount plenty of self-interested reasons around American standing, around the global economy, around the capacity for Americans to be safe in other places, that you'd want to get as much vaccine to as many places as fast as possible. And this feels like a very good idea to do that.
Yeah, and also just so listeners know, I mean, this isn't a challenge just for low-income countries. Europe is in a really tough spot right now because a bunch of the countries in Europe, Spain, France, Italy, have stopped vaccinating people with the AstraZeneca vaccine because of fears about that it might potentially be creating blood clots. Hopefully they sort that out quickly, but a lot of places are way behind us. Cases are spiking, so we got to move on this. Ben, you want to talk